Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
The National Parks Arts Foundation creates unique artist-in-residence programs within the National Park Service and all kinds of other parks too. And the programs are open for all of the arts. You can be a dancer, a poet, a sculptor, a painter. I'm going to write a song just saying all that. And you could go in and have one of their experiences as an artist in residence within a park. Incredible, from the dry tortugas out in the ocean on a little island, or you could be out in Hawaii at the volcanoes, or you could be out in the high desert of New Mexico in a fort. It really does have a variety of experiences to offer you. So as an artist, I encourage you to go to nationalparks-arts-foundation.org. There's always a new park to be part of as an artist, and the deadlines always approach pretty darn fast. So move on it as fast as you can. Go to nationalparks-arts-foundation.org. And we're very excited today. Our First Friday Arts happens the first Friday of every month here on Blog Talk Radio and Big Blend Radio. And we have a special program today. We've got Chip Beck joining us again. Chip is a U.S. veteran and also an award-winning combat artist. We spoke to him last year in 2017 in the fall, right before he went to do his residency at Gettysburg National Military Park. And today he's going to join us to tell us about his experience. Plus, we have Tanya Ortega, the founder of the National Parks Arts Foundation, with us as well. And I'm sure she's going to tell us all about those deadlines. Welcome back, Tanya. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. It's good to hear everybody.
You too. And am I right about those deadlines, right? I'm already on it. Like, everybody go there, do it now. Go.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for saying that. The one for June in Hawaii is April 13th, and all of Gettysburg is April 20th, as well as we're basically winding up all of our artist-in-residence scheduled programs for 2018 late and 2019 in April. So they're all going to be over by April, so everybody has to apply.
Okay, do it now. The best thing to do is sign up for the newsletter, and also on social media, you'll see these opportunities. And I think Gettysburg is really one of those unique opportunities. They have a wonderful program for poets as well as U.S. military veterans, and that's where Chip comes in. Chip, welcome back. How are you?
Thank you. I'm very good.
Hey, it's awesome to have you back. And I know, you've traveled, over 130 countries, recording historical and political events. And, then Gettysburg, I remember on the show when you were with us last year, you were talking about how this has there's a ancestry that is around that area, and in Gettysburg, your family history is there, but also you've been going to that region for quite a bit. But this time it's about actually staying in the park, in that beautiful farmhouse that you photographed with the first snow. And so what was that like for you? I mean, to just completely immerse yourself for a month.
Oh, that was fantastic. And my wife, Kathy, joined me.
Cool.
So we both kind of explored not only the park, but a couple of the areas leading out, different directions, the way the Union and Confederate troops came in. So that was historic in and of itself. And I found out through the local historical society some things about my ancestors that I never knew before, and even found some photographs of them in the park. So I was able to stand on the same spot where my ancestors stood and have my picture taken there, and inserted it into their picture through the miracle of modern photography and digital apps. So that was fun, but I loved it. I had a great time there.
That's way cool. That is amazing. I mean, having that's a completely different feeling. I know, Tanya, we've had a number of artists that had their residency at Gettysburg, and each one has had a unique experience. And this is definitely a unique one when it actually goes right back to your family. And you also did an event there. That's one thing that happens with these residencies, where each artist gets to do an event, whether it's a show, a performance. You did a showcase, right? And also you spoke as well to everyone.
Yeah, that's right. What I did was bring some paintings. I think it was around 10 or 15 from other wars that I covered. So I was kind of promoting it as a Civil War artist, but not the American Civil War. It was civil wars in different parts of Indochina, the Middle East, South America. So I had representational paintings of each of those conflicts that I had covered, and just was kind of out in the middle of the visitors center there and just talked to people as they came through. And of course, it was the end of the season, so there was not giant crowds, but it's just enough to come through and talk to people individually and make it kind of up close and personal. And had a couple of interviews while we were there, so it was fun.
Chip, I want to ask you, going back to that family photo, did you, like, when you looked at that photo, did you say, man, I look like that guy right there?
No, actually I didn't. It was a great uncle, and he had a long white beard. He was from Germany and had belonged to the Bucktails regiment, which is a bunch of not sharpshooters, but guys who were familiar with weapons before they could even join. But the thing that was exciting when I looked at the old 1880s photograph, I said, I know exactly where that rock is. They were down in the what's called the Devil's Den in the slaughterhouse, and it's a famous rock even today. That back over 100 and some years ago, they were photographing people that came through that park right after the Civil War. So I said, I know that place. So we went, Kathy and I went dashing down there, and I had my picture taken standing on the same rock a little bit off to the side. And then when I Photoshop myself into their photograph, now I have an ancestor that does look like me in the photo.
I love this. These ties, because this is the thing about, history and family history and going to places like Gettysburg is that there's international ties. There's always these, and that it, we are, one country in a world, and a world in one country kind of thing. And what I find fascinating is your work, throughout the years as a combat artist and cartoonist. Which probably some people are going, why are you a cartoonist if you're doing combat art? It's like that's a whole thing too. But being in a place where you were showing Civil War work that you've done, and being in a place that was a significant Civil War site for our country, how when you're standing there, because this was older times, could you kind of compare the history? Did you feel the history from other places there, or, that whole feeling of Civil War in general?
I don't know if I felt the other places, but it made me think about wars in general and civil wars in particular, including our own American Civil War and the ones that I've seen other places. And I always think about why in the world, or how do we get ourselves involved in these conflicts in the first place? There always seems to be ways that we can escape them, yet we rarely do. So in that sense, Gettysburg did set me thinking, and there were a lot of nuances that developed there in Gettysburg that I had never thought of before. I knew the history, the basics, but some of the personal stories and some of the broader political events that were going on became a lot more clear and were more understandable after being there in that environment.
It's interesting. And also, the other part I want to touch on is Gettysburg has the history of the arts in it as well. Tanya, isn't that true? I mean, when we look at our national park system service, the arts played a huge role in even having the National Park Service and having places protected naturally and for history. And so there's that huge thing. But Tanya, isn't Gettysburg also a significant place for the arts?
Well, as a whole, I've spoken about it before, but and not a lot of people know this, so it's important to make sure that people know that the reason that the parks were started was because two artists were sent to where Yellowstone is now, and came back with paintings, not the full paintings, but small ones that Congress saw, and they said, this place is so beautiful, we need to start the National Park Service. So it's as simple as that. Specifically, Gettysburg has a very rich history. I mean, when you look at the old even photographs of the Civil War, you will see. I mean, our government, the military, used to assign and does still. Chip is an example of that right now. Artists to battles, artists to just, it's a different form of communication that really works and has, the demographic is all over the place for artists. So to get back, sorry, I'm going off just thinking about Chip's incredible journeys and adventures. Gettysburg itself has an incredibly rich history in all of the arts, poetry, I mean, even journaling, painting. The reason that people knew what was going on there during the battle was because it was being drawn by artists who were on site. So that,
does bring Chip right there. And so, Chip, did you do a lot of, looky-loos at the art that has been done in the past and that is preserved there as well?
Oh, yeah. I went through the visitor center there, which is relatively new. I think it's, 10 or 15 years old now. And they had other paintings going all the way back to the, the period of the Civil War, plus artists that have been there between then and now. And incredible works. You need a couple of days to go through there. You can't do it just in one fell swoop, sort of like the Smithsonian Museum. But it really, both the photography and the artwork that is presented there just makes you really feel a part of what happened, and it brings it all a lot closer than just reading print on a book. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, especially getting the paintings too. Did you see any cartoon work? Because I'm going back to you being a cartoonist who's also a combat artist, and did you see any cartoons in there historically?
There were some caricature type cartoons, but not so many. Not of the straight humor kind. There was a couple political cartoons, caricatures of the generals and Lincoln and things like that. But not. I didn't run across a whole lot of those, but I know they were, being done at the time.
And we followed you on Instagram while you were there, and after, obviously, I look at your Instagram every day. I'm like, where's Chip? Come on. Yeah. Give me your photograph.
Lisa always comes to me and goes, Chip's off and running.
I know, I do. And when you were in Botswana too, I was like, dude, I'm so jealous. But anyway, going back to Gettysburg, a lot of the photos, you got incredible sunsets and sunrises. I mean, just absolutely, even you have like the blood moon over Pickett's chart, so you had the full moon happening. So it seemed like the skies there have a connection to the past, if that makes sense. But there just seems to be a really deep feeling there.
Oh, you're so right about that. And the neat thing about the Klingle house, the farmhouse where we stayed for a month, it's right out there in the middle of the battlefield on the edge of Pickett's Charge, where they made their final run on the third day, the 3rd of July. And there's no ambient light around. The only light there was if I turned on the front porch or the back porch light. And when you walked out the back door and looked up at the sky, I mean, the town of Gettysburg, which is not really well lit in the first place, is a mile away. So you can see the stars and the moon and, the atmosphere in ways that you can't see in most of our major cities. And the first morning, I had resolved to get up every morning before sunrise and go photograph. And the first morning was probably the most spectacular sunrise I saw the whole time. And it was actually just before a storm hit us in Gettysburg and kind of spoiled I don't want to say reenactors, but the historical march and everything like that. But sunset was orange and yellow and red. It's sort of like the old saying, red sky in the morning, sailor take morning. And sure enough, the storm did come through, but it was beautiful. And then I was there when the second or the first of the 2 full moons came up. So there was a blood moon coming up, and I was out in the backyard sort of the farmhouse trying to photograph that. And then when it was coming up, I said, I need to get something in the foreground. So I literally ran across Pickett's Charge in the dark to find a tree or a monument or something to photograph it in time with the moon rising, and I was able to do that. But just spectacular atmospheric and astronomical sights there.
So is it haunted?
Oh, here she goes.
Yeah,
She's going right there immediately. Is
Yeah.
it haunted in the Klingel House?
Yeah.
Well,
or anywhere
some
there.
some of my predecessors wrote in the diary there that it was haunted, and that was enough to keep my wife from going up in the attic or down in the basement. But we had a guard Chihuahua, and they didn't signal any ghosts there. And I looked around and stuff like that, but they didn't visit. I think if there are any ghosts there, they were friendly because of my ancestors, so they didn't bother me.
That's cool. Your work, when I'm looking at some of the work you've done, is you did photography, but also mixed media, and did some plein air sketching as well. So this is you do a little bit of everything. And so by the time you came back, I mean, did you do a lot on site, or did you just, I know the plein air part of it, you're out there in the field when you're not running across it. You did a lot of photography and being out there, but did you do the work with the photography afterwards, after the residency, or were you, working on it all the time? And like, how many pieces did you come back with? Is what I want to know.
Well, the photography I was doing, pretty much every day, and lots of it, taking photographs. And one thing I wanted to do was to use the monuments there, the statues of the soldiers, as an inspiration, but not in the normal way. I'm doing a series, I call them the Stone Soldiers. And I tried to photograph them in different lighting and different angles. And what I did was to work them with some apps and stuff into a bit of art in and of themselves, so that they didn't look like just simple, bronze statues that everybody sees and goes ho hum. I tried to put landscapes behind them, and different skies and sunsets and clouds and so forth, to make the statues themselves come alive. And I was amazed; they almost became like models for what I wanted to do in the sketches. And there's a couple paintings I'm still working on, some battle scenes and so forth, where I'm pulling out some of these stone soldiers as just like if I had a live model in the studio in a way. But the painting is a little too cold and windy up there to get out and do a whole lot of plein air painting. I did some sketches, and a lot of the photography is reference material, but it was pretty chilly up there. It wasn't like it was in July of '63 by any means.
Did you see the deer? It's the important question.
Oh, the deer. I did see some deer. And what else did I see? I'm trying to think. Most everything else, I think, was going into hibernation, except for the artist in residence. He had to be outside in the cold.
But I think there's something to those kinds of seasons when you're in a place where such, traumatic history happened. And when it's cold like that, you just think about, when wars are taking place and the soldiers having to go through the elements outdoors and really having to handle it, whether it's extreme heat or extreme cold. And, I just even think, as a guitarist, not a good one, a guitar player, that's a good word for me. What's interesting, when you're out in the cold, I remember doing gigs where my fingers just were not going to work. I mean, I still wonder how guitarists do that. And then you think about these soldiers going out in a place that's so cold and having to fight and having to move your fingers, and the fear. Like, there's anxiety and there's adrenaline. And so, like, being out in the cold, did you feel those kinds of things? Like, what was it like to carry your guns? And
I've thought about it. I mean, I've gone through training in the military in the dead of winter, when we've been slogging through 3 feet of snow and stuff. Ironically, it was to prepare us for going to Vietnam. But soldiers fought in Chosin Reservoir in Korea. It was colder than anybody could believe. And then in Vietnam, I remember one time the temperature's up to 128. I think there's a rule where you cannot fight a war in any location that has a temperate climate. It either has to be too hot or too cold. But yeah, that's part of the misery. It's not just the human element that one is fighting against, but it's the climate that you're fighting in, and the environment and the conditions, which are normally brutal. I don't know why, but they are.
Yeah. Well, I think I just feel like sometimes the nature
gets upset
gets into it. I can't explain that. I mean, I know I'm not trying to be weird, but I believe like the natural elements, there's an energy that everything feeds off each other. You know, like a musician performing live, the audience feeds off of the musician's energy, and the musician feeds off the audience energy. I think the natural elements, that happens when there's a happening like that. Just, you know.
Well, one thing that I learned when I was up in Gettysburg from the National Park staff there was interesting. The temperatures during those 3 days of battle were up in the 90s and even the low 100s, and there was an inversion, of air up above, so that all the smoke from all these muskets and things were firing hung right on the battlefield. So after a few thousand shots are fired, you can't see. It was like thick, dense fog, and you had to get down on the ground to even see somebody else's feet on the other side, and it was just a mess. You couldn't see what you were doing. You couldn't see what the enemy was doing. It was just chaos. And plus, it was just, remember, these guys were fighting in wool uniforms, scratchy wool uniforms in the middle of July. I can't imagine that.
No, that's bad.
No. And I think about that where, like, when people came west, and wagons and women in those big long dresses and, come on, we can wear shorts now. We should be happy. We can do that. I mean, Tanya, would you have worn a dress walking alongside the wagon for days and days and years to get across to the other side that you don't know about? Would you wear those long, thick socks and stockings and hats and long sleeve shirts, woolies? Would you do that, Tanya? Come on.
It sounds like one of those tests where all of a sudden, if I say yes, it will happen. I'll suddenly be transported there and have to live to my. But I mean, they had no choice. Let's face it. So I would have to, I guess. But no, willingly, no, of course not.
I know. No. But this is the interesting thing about going into these historic sites and understanding. And Chip, I think you're so right. There's a talent with the written word that can put you away. That's why I love that you have the poets going out there too, Tanya, because poetry has a way of putting you that sense of place and putting you there in it. And photography and art has this way of transporting you there. So, Chip, for people that aren't able to get to Gettysburg, not everyone's in this country can get there. Not everyone around the world can get to Gettysburg, yet it's this iconic site that people know around the world. But I don't think you can imagine it until the arts come in, right? Chip, for while you were there, I mean, learning things and seeing, you get to see them in the visitor center, seeing exactly how the men were dressed and what people were going through. I don't think it translates unless you're there or the arts take hold and show people.
Well, it certainly is help if people can get to Gettysburg and both, see the visual arts and read the references maybe before they get there or while they're there, but then experiencing the actual site itself. And one of the most incredible events there is the I want to say diorama, but it's the Tanya, help me out on this. What do you call the circular show, the video and the sound stage and everything? Is that 3D?
The cyclorama. The
cyclorama, yes. Cyclorama. It's 147 foot painting in a circle that was done in about a year, and it's just amazing. And you go into the center of this thing, and you're standing up as though you were in the high water mark by Gettysburg, and you can see the entire battlefield, 360 degrees around you, and the guns are going off, and there's a narrative showing where the battles start and where they finish and what's going on here and there. And you look out, and the paintings are so realistic. It's like a Ken Burns movie, but it's all around you, and you feel like you're right there. And I would invite anybody who goes to Gettysburg not to miss that cyclorama. I went there 3 times, took some friends that came up to visit us while we were there, and each time, I mean, it was not like, oh, I'm bored, I've already seen it twice. It was like, I see something new and different. And yeah, I could stand up there in that center piece and look over and see the Klingel farm way off in the distance and think, hey, that's where I'm living now. And, it was just an incredible experience. Every American should go there and think about what happened, why it happened, and, what relevance it has for today, because it has relevance.
Oh, big time.
It does. That's why it's so important to save these places and enhance them like that when you can, so that people don't forget, or even learn, in case they don't know, what happened, why it happened, and does it have to happen again? Because it could happen again. And, we need to be careful of that and understand what it took to make it happen, so that we can make sure it doesn't happen again. To me, that's the whole point of history, is to learn from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we don't. Or the politicians don't, I think.
Well, yeah. So
don't start me on that.
Well, here's a field trip for politicians. Take them there and make them sit in there till they get it.
Yeah. Well, it's the interesting thing of life, and I think it's true. Education is, when you get it, that's when it becomes powerful. And if you utilize it, you can learn something, in school, you can learn it that day. It could come in, go in that one ear, kind of hang around in the middle part, go out the other one. You kind of know it enough to get through an exam, but then it goes out the window if you do not use your education. And that's the thing. That to me is that key. You got to utilize it. You got to practice that education muscle, the learning muscle, and we have a lot of them.
But it's got to mean something to you. It has to appear real, and that's what the parks do, especially the historic parks. They make it real to you, so that it. Watching movies. A lot of movies do a really good job of making things that in history real, but to go to a place. It makes it even more real, especially if you're open. You can be open, because some people can go look at things and it just goes like it's so what, and because they're not really open to it. There's a way of being open to different places so that you can get out of your comfort zone and actually feel it. And if you feel it, you'll remember it.
That's what's so powerful about the Parks Foundation, the National Parks-Arts Foundation programs. It really it transcends, because art lasts and it goes everywhere, and I think that's the thing, Tanya, it rocks. I mean, what's going on in Gettysburg, and you always hear about national parks, artist in residence program, and it's, scenic parks, yes, like Dry Tortuga. I think all the parks are scenic. From my experience, I don't care where it is, there's something scenic to it. There's always a natural element or some tie-in somewhere, because people rely on nature to survive. But to me, what's so amazing about this program is going to a battlefield. Whoever thought that you would, like Chip said, live there, right? So you're living there for a month versus you're in for a few days and look, I'm painting pretty flowers and bunnies. There's nothing wrong with that. I love that. But there's this, as artistic as it could be, there's a realism that is shared around the world. And that's the thing. This moves from this, right? Tanya, an artist comes in, but these projects, their painting series, their poetry, their films, this is something that lasts for a very, very long time.
In so many different ways too. Every single one of our artists, they just won't stop being inspired by residencies they did 5, 6, 10 years ago. It's like, it's so wonderful. The inspiration is this. I mean, there's got to be one of the artists out there that has stopped remembering and not being inspired by this experience, but I don't know of one yet. Chip, tell me if it happens to you, would you?
Oh, yeah.
I think he's the wrong person to ask that.
Yeah.
He's like, we were talking about that before we went on air, that there's people that are amused, and you go like, it's like, every time I see your art and photography, Chip, I'm like, man, I'm going to start thinking that way. Like, you make me like try things out. And I think that's an important part too. Everybody has some piece of creativity in them in some way, even if it's an accountant, and we love creative accountants.
At tax time.
Yes, it's that time of year. Just saying. And I think that's the other thing that comes out of these programs. Every time we've done our first Friday radio program with the National Parks Arts Foundation, we hang up from the show, and I'm like, man, that just made me think a different way. And that's right. I mean, Chip, you were saying this is an important time right now for people to go there, to see it. We're having this drama in our country and around the world, and going to these places makes things real versus just spouting off on, people get hot on the collar.
You're right. And I'm trying to think of any other park that, does the historical reflection as well as Gettysburg. Maybe I just haven't been to enough of them. I've been to Arlington, of course, and that's solemn and reverent, but it's not exactly a teaching location as the visitor center at Gettysburg is. But I've been some 20 different wars, revolutions, conflict zones in my careers, and there's probably not a one of them we couldn't have avoided altogether or handled with far less loss of treasure and life. And as we move forward and have people still in government that are belligerent, all political parties, sometimes I think, those who really want to aspire to be politicians or commanders in chief ought to have experienced something like the war. I once went to Cuba back 15, 16 years ago for a war correspondence conference that I was invited to as a combat artist. And their slogan was, "Those who know war will struggle for peace." And there's really something to that. Once you've seen the horrors and the stupidity and the nonsense that goes on in war, you don't want to participate in the slaughter at all. I mean,
who said that? I'm sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Who said that? I'm writing it down. That's incredible.
Well, that was in Cuba. That was in Cuba. In 1998, I went there for a war correspondence meeting. I was the only American invited, and they actually showed my combat art from Angola, which was a war they fought in. And the slogan was, "Those who know war will struggle for peace."
Yeah.
And I think a lot of veterans that you talk to, whether it's World War II or Korea, Vietnam, or coming out of probably Afghanistan and Iraq, today will say, when they reflect on it, what was the reason? Why did we do this? Was it necessary? Could we have done something else? I mean, we're talking now about, or we had been talking a couple months ago about a war with North Korea. Don't go there. We don't need a war with Korea, China.
Yeah, I often wonder why how our system works when it comes to the military and our, the president, vice president, the whole thing. How is it that a person, and we've had several, who has never served in the military ends up being commander in chief? How is that possible? That's like asking a person who has never played a musical instrument to conduct an orchestra. I don't get that.
Been there, done that, Nancy. It didn't work.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It don't work. Yeah. How does that work? What is the sense in a government that has a commander in chief who has never got the toe wet, and never hasn't served? I mean, how can they possibly come down with responsible decisions? I don't get that part.
Yeah, I think, as a political scientist, I wonder that too. And, I think, okay, you've been elected, whoever it is, you've been elected president. That's your main job. The commander-in-chief part only should come in if we actually go to war that's declared by Congress. If Congress doesn't declare a war as says in the Constitution, stay out of these conflicts,
Mm-hmm.
But we don't
Especially
do
by
that.
Twitter. Yeah, but okay. But it's, I think you're really right though about, seeing things and experiencing them. Just in my own upbringing in South Africa and Kenya, there are a lot of things I saw as a very young person that I didn't understand as I was a teenager. And my thing was I wanted to be a photojournalist in wars and go capture them. And I think because I saw so many, that was the only thing I saw that actually portrayed what was really going on, because the local news didn't make sense.
Not at
and you
all.
can't talk to other people because everyone's just fighting, kind of like now.
Yeah.
And the only thing that really said the truth was that. And I wanted to do that, and I didn't understand where that came from, about wanting to go and photograph that kind of thing. And Nancy was like, you don't want to go into wars and stuff. I'm like, no, I don't. But I just, for some reason, wanted to capture this because I think I was just really upset about some of the things we were seeing.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting now, like when we were in the mountains, lived in the mountains in San Diego, and we went through a series of wildfires. We evacuated 7 times, full evacuations within a year and a half. And the last time, a lot of our friends lost their homes. And we helped them, get back on their feet and take photos for insurance purposes. And the last roundabout, so many homes were, I can't even, it was devastating. And I went around photographing for everybody. And I remember going, well, now you've done what you thought in the past that you wanted to do. And how do you feel? I felt so sick, yet I felt like at least I'm yet helpful. There was this balance, and you never want to go through this again in your life. You never, and at the same time, I knew I was helping them fight for their money, which I don't even want to go into what happens through these national disasters. Mm-hmm. People really don't score from it. And a lot of people think they do. They really don't. At the end of it, no one won.
It takes years to recover.
But there was this thing of also, there was a resiliency that I photographed in faces of my friends and their families of all ages. While there was devastation, I saw this resiliency, the spark of it. And that I was like, okay, people can go on in life. So there was like this double-sided coin. And Chip, this is what you do, and you've been doing for gazillions of years, not gazillions of years in your age, but this is your life. You've done so much. Is that like how you feel when you go and photograph and capture these moments, that there is still there's still a hope?
Well, I think there's always hope. And when I was a little kid, growing up in Hagerstown, Maryland, 2 things I wanted to do, and I can't remember if I said this before the last time we talked, but I wanted to travel the world, and I wanted to have adventures. And whatever I've done, whatever I've, climbed up the ladder in various careers, I have experienced that. I've now been to 145 countries, all continents except Antarctica, and I hope to get there someday. But, when I went to Vietnam because I wanted to experience history, I knew at the time that we were going to lose, that we shouldn't be there the way we were, but I wanted to see it. And I made sure that my own behavior and actions didn't violate any principles I held. And I've always done that in the places that I've gone. I've always tried to help people more than harm them. And I've been successful in doing that. In fact, when I went to Cuba, I was invited there because I had helped some Cuban prisoners 25 years previously. I didn't torture them. I made sure they were taken care of and arranged to have them exchanged for some other nationalities who were prisoners. And the Cubans verified that and said, we'd like to help you with a project I had at that time in Cuba. So, kind of like karma, you do good, it'll come back and help. And, we're all humans on this planet. Think of what we could do if the doggone world would get together, stop fighting, and start, moving forward to our potential, which we're not doing it, at anywhere near the capacity that we could. I guess I'm preaching here, but, I'm nearing probably last quarter of my life, and I'm disappointed we're not already, building cities on Mars or heading to Alpha Centauri or something. And we're just wasting time with all this conflict.
I have this theory that the only time the world is going to get together and work together is going to be through a common threat, which you would think that climate change might be one. But I think it's going to have to be aliens. Aliens are going to have to come down in order for us to get together and forget our petty differences, which most of our differences are pretty petty. And then we'll have a common goal and a common enemy, and then maybe then we can stop all this other stuff that goes on. But when I look at
who says aliens are going to come here to fight us?
I'm not saying that. Well, there was a UFO over somewhere in Arizona a few days ago, and I was thinking, come on, no.
Stop saying that.
I know. and they might be really nice if there are any.
I believe they're nice. It's William Shatner.
They might actually help us,
exactly.
Or not. But it just seems like we always have to have a bigger drama to forget the smaller dramas, and instead of getting together, like we tried to get together for world peace, we tried to get together for climate change, but there's always the resistors who can't be part of anything.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate because we all lose by that.
Well, as I'm sitting here freezing my tush off in Northern Virginia right now, I'm wondering if climate change is, I believe it's happening, but I don't know if it's going towards an ice age or something more warmer. But it's not getting warm here very soon. I'm missing spring, so bring it on.
I know. I think you should come out and hang out with us in Tucson. We're sunny. Yeah. We've had 90-degree days. Sunny delight. That's what we are.
I keep applying for.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I keep applying for an artist in residency in Hawaii. I think I've applied 65 times now.
I know someone. I know someone
who could help with
I think there's an organization. It's called the National Parks-Arts-Foundation. And from what I've heard, there's even like dry tortugas where you can have your own private island, and you can take your wife. And then there's these amazing Hawaiian, you could go to New Mexico in the spring and summer. I mean, that's in fall. It's not like freezing.
I was willing to go to dry tortugas, but my wife was not, because apparently you need two people there to set up your survival situation. And I was perfectly fine going there by myself, but and I still would do that, but I can't talk my wife into it.
Oh, you guys, you make me feel so bad. This is why I don't have total control, because if I had total control, everybody I know would have residencies all the time.
I think those of us that had frostbite in Gettysburg in the middle of the winter ought to be at least allowed to put our toes in the warm water of the Hawaii Volcano National Park.
Oh, Haleakala and all that. I mean, wait. I know, Chip. You should go for Death Valley. I mean, that's the hottest place on earth. And do they do that in the summer for Chip?
No, they can't. No.
Death Valley's looking. No, but this is what's so unique. I mean, I think it's interesting because we have 418 units, national park units now, and they're also just 2/3 of them are historical, but they're just so unique. When you look at these artists in residence, you pop up like, okay, Death Valley, then Chaco Canyon, and you go out there and you could be doing sky photography and night photography and all these. It's actually a very cool way of promoting what we do have in this country in these different opportunities. And I think what's cool, Tanya, is like Gettysburg is open to, you have all these different projects. This is your most intense residency program, right? Is there always an artist in the house over there?
Pretty much, yeah, there pretty much is. And I have to say, Gettysburg is just such a great combination of people, projects, open to new ideas. I feel like in some ways in a few ways, Gettysburg is ahead of most of the other parks well, anybody that has our programs is ahead of other parks, but Gettysburg in particular, they're just investing in artists. And as you can see, we try to give back as much directly to artists and the people that support them, and as much as possible. So yes, the answer is yes. Gettysburg is great. Gettysburg it ties the legacy of the arts. It has a story. Every artist that goes there has a different experience. And the park staff is a huge part of that. The park staff there lets the artists practice their art in the way that they need to. We have some parks that apply for our programs that require office hours of the artists. And it's just because that is we've, asked them why. Why do you think the artists work that way? Because it's totally counterintuitive to how artists work. I mean, usually, 99% of the time. And they say, well, that's what we know. That's our, we have our 9-to-5 government job. We show up in the office, and it's really kind of interesting because we have to do a lot of explaining, like artists work a lot and very hard, but it's on their own schedule. Otherwise, it simply doesn't happen. They can't get work done, It's
2 in the morning.
Well, it's 90% thinking anyway.
Yeah, and you're in your bubble. You have to be in your zone. Some artists can work with chaos around them. Some have to have peace. Everybody has a different thing with what they're doing. I just love the fact that there's a full month of living it. That to me is very cool. Before you both go, one last question here. Tanya, we have a thing about 1-hour walks and getting people to take a walk for their health, for happiness, communication, being observant. The first thing is to be observant, to take a walk. It's not about, climbing Mount Everest or really being fast. It's about being observant. And so I want to ask each of you, Tanya, you're in Hawaii, so we're doing Hawaii with you. Chip, a 1-hour walk in Gettysburg. And you could take a 1-hour walk now with anyone. Or you can go in spring, okay? We'll let you go in spring or summer so you can warm up. And you could take anyone in the world on this 1-hour walk. They could be alive, passed on, fictional. It could be a movie character. It could be, Tom Sawyer. I don't know. Who would you take on a 1-hour walk to have a conversation? And where would you go for that 1-hour walk in Gettysburg?
Oh, boy.
A good one, huh? Tanya, you're doing Hawaii, and you get to pick your park because you've got more than one residency there.
If I could do a 1-hour walk, I think it would be with a ghost of the Confederate Army who would walk from Longstreet's position across Pickett's Charge up towards the high water mark and back, a survivor, and talk to him about what he experienced, what he felt, and just his whole feelings about those couple hours on that battlefield. I know it's impossible to, it's not impossible. You can go back and read things, but I would love to have been able to talk to somebody right afterwards and, as a historian, say, what the hell happened out there? What were you thinking, experiencing? And you get it when you make that walk on Pickett's Charge, and if you go up to Gettysburg, you can actually walk across the trail that takes you there. It's worth doing. Again, it makes you think. What were these guys thinking? You can walk there now, you and I, but these guys were walking there when there were mini balls flying through the air as thick as mosquitoes, So that's what I would do. I'd like to talk to somebody from the past.
Cool. Me too. I think it's always fascinating. Tanya, who are you walking with where and why? Gossip. We want the gossip.
You want the gossip.
I love gossip.
I wish I had some. It's really not an exciting walk.
It's going to be the new cocktail recipe I make, the gossip cocktail. That's a good one.
Gossip is just history.
Oh, we'll have to do it like with some Fireball whiskey. Was it, whatever they're doing, that Fireball stuff? We'll call it the hot gossip. That's it.
Yeah.
One shot of that and you'll be,
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, you'll be telling us all. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
I think I would just walk with Leonard Cohen in the sort of the caldera of Kilauea.
All right. She likes Leonard Cohen.
Mm.
There's reasons for that.
Yeah.
Like I would like to have a songwriting class with him.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, I would like to have like some lessons with him. That would be.
Well, yeah, they'd have to be with his ghost. So maybe we can arrange that. So ghosts are good. They're good teachers, I hear.
Yeah. Hey, they'll talk to you in your sleep. You never know what would happen. Okay, lastly, Chip, would you go back to Gettysburg for a residency?
Oh, absolutely, in a heartbeat. In fact, I'll probably go back to, Gettysburg periodically just to check on some things I wanted to do and on my own. But yeah, I'd go back again. I love that place, and again, I found some connections to my own ancestors there. I was coming off the high water mark during that first snow, and I looked off 5 miles in the distance. I could see Liberty Mountain, where there's a ski resort now, and you could see the snow there. Well, that's where my ancestors lived, right at the base of that mountain. And I could imagine them walking up to the top and, listening to the fire. I mean, you could hear the battle all the way to Baltimore and Philadelphia. So, my ancestors must have had a pretty good fireworks show there, but I'd go back. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. So, Chip, how everybody can find you on Instagram, because everyone needs to follow you there.
Oh, yeah, I'm not big into social media yet, but if you go to Chip-Beck Combat Artist on Instagram, you can see a lot of my photographs from different parts of the world and some of my paintings. I'm still working on the Gettysburg material too, because it's really intimidating going up there and thinking, okay, what can I provide the National Parks Art Foundation that is worthy of the program itself? It's a little bit intimidating. It's fun, but I'm still working on 16 different ideas here for Tanya. So hopefully I can get them up to snuff.
You're the best.
It's
great.
It's a respect thing, I think, too. It's such a respectful experience, and there's something important with this, with what you put out there to the world.
If Tanya ever gets a year's residency in Gettysburg, I'll apply for it.
I want it. You have to fight us.
Wow.
I'll arm wrestle you for it.
Okay, I really know, real quick, we're running out of time here, but Chip, you went there with your wife. Now, I want to know, did you guys walk out on the battlefield and say, okay, I'm going to be the Confederate, you be the Union, you go that side, go this side, and let's sneak up on each other?
Well, Kathy was born in Little Rock, so she has kind of a Southern background, and as you understood, I had ancestors who fought in the Union, so
wow.
I think if she played the Confederate part and I played the Union part, history would change and she would win.
Uh-oh. Wow. There you go. All right, everyone, again, combat-artist.com. That's a good website for you, Chip, for everyone to go. Or you also have it on Tumblr. You're also on Tumblr.
Yeah, combat-artist.com. I haven't kept up on that, but the Instagram, Chip-Beck Combat Artist, and I think Tumblr is...
combat-artist-chip-beck. Tumblr.com. You'll find them there. Yeah. And again, for the National Parks Arts Foundation, go to nationalparks-arts-foundation.org. Every first Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, you'll hear interviews with artists about their experience or on their way to their experience of a residency. We always have a good time and always get inspired. And we always, there's always this thing of now we have to look at things in a different light. So thank you for that, Chip and Tanya. I like that. It's always good to look at things in a different set of sunglasses or regular glasses or rose or blue, whatever color glasses you want to wear, you can. Everyone, nationalparks-arts-foundation.org. Follow them on Facebook and Twitter. Sign up for their newsletter. That is the best way to find out about the opportunities. Your opportunities come in fast and leave fast because of the way funding works and grants work. So check that out. I want to remind everyone we air here on Blog Talk Radio if you go to bigblendradio.com, you'll see our full schedule. We air Sunday and Fridays at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, bigblendradio.com for that. And we're going to close with a beautiful song called Colors of the USA. It is from Doreen Taylor. Doreen Taylor is a Pennsylvania native. She's incredible, Billboard charting artist, and Colors of the USA was written for our national parks and about our national parks, because she wanted to showcase not only the beauty of our parks, but also the history that our parks showcase, preserve, protect, and interpret. So Colors of the USA is the song. You can go to DoreenTaylorMusic.com to learn more. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you. It's good to talk to you all.
You too. Thanks for coming back on, Chip. It's such a pleasure.
Yeah, it's fun.
Oh, and I always enjoy talking to you ladies too. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Take care. Here it is, everyone. Colors of the USA.
History of my country is painted in so many colors, like this mighty land of mine. This world around me changes, every day is something new. Colors of this great land proudly shine right through. Protect